We just come from the shade gardens, Mary, and these are two of my sun gardens, and as you can tell, it's very warm out here, so they do quite well. I do have a variegated yucca right here that does very well, and I have a plain yucca that just finished blooming in the other bed. And I do use different flowers for transitioning. I have actually daffodils in here that come up in the spring and then they die back, and about that time the irises and the false indigo, they start to bloom, and as they die back, as you can see, the salvias and the daylilies and the monardas and the coneflowers, they all start to bloom as well. So I always have constant color in the whole flower bed, and that kind of is nice because you have color all summer.
Well, then you have different textures in here too. What is that plant right there?
It is called a teddy bear pine, and that is one I found out in North Dakota. It's a very slow growing, and it always stays that deep green, and it's been a fun plant to have. And then up here I have what is called a Turkish burning bush, and it turns red just like a burning bush does in the fall, and it does bloom as well, and the flower heads are almost like little pockets. They're little four-sided pockets, and when they open they're pink. But the bad thing about that one is it does reseed out, so you have to be on the watch for it.
I was going to ask what that plant was. It's so unusual.
And I always look for plants that are different and unusual that I don't usually see around here, because most people stay with the standard and they're a little bit afraid to step out of that comfort zone. You have to try to see if it'll grow or not grow, and most of the time it will.
Where do you find unusual plants like this?
When we go someplace and there's a nursery, I tell my husband, oh, we gotta stop. We gotta stop. You never know what you might find. And I found this one in Fargo at a nursery. And that is the same with a lot of my hardscape. Any of the statues, any of the wind catchers, we find them in different places that we stop at. And if I find one I like and it's reasonably priced, I will pick it up because it adds so much to the yard, to the flower beds, and we enjoy them.
So you mentioned plants that you like for spring and for the summer. How about the fall?
For the fall, I've got the autumn joy sedums that are always very popular. I have an obedient plant that usually is quite a bit larger than what it is now, and the butterflies and the bees love them in September and October, but I don't know if it's going to get of size this year. The other things, if you cut your salvias back, now this has been cut back once already this summer, and it is reblooming again, and if we cut it back again, as long as it doesn't get too far into September, it will bloom a third time. I have the chrysanthemums that are blooming during the Septembers and the Octobers and stuff, but this year is a little bit different. I have a lot of chrysanthemums that are blooming now, which is very unusual because chrysanthemums aren't supposed to bloom until closer to September. And this one, Mary, is a salvia, and it is called Azure Snow, and it is a bicolor, and we do get 3 waves of bloom a summer out of it.
Nancy, one of the things that I notice is that you do a fabulous job of incorporating different heights of plants.
Yes, I do like to put like grasses in because they do give some height. The Carl Forster grass is a great one because that one I will leave up until spring, and then I will cut it back and I'll have winter interest. It gives nice movement in the wind. And then some of the shrubs and stuff also, they give different heights and kind of gives a little variation to the flower beds.
Well, and really the texture too. I see kind of a blue evergreen back there.
And that is a globe blue spruce. They don't say small like they say they're going to, but it has added a lot to the flower beds too. And there too, when those get to be a certain height, a lot of the plants have to be moved from them because they get too big. So then the plants get moved out and something else gets planted. And I also incorporate other plants that are unusual for this area. I do have a prickly pear cactus as well in my flower bed, and it does quite well. It bloomed quite well this year. And eventually, as it gets bigger, you can take the blossoms from that and make prickly pear jelly.
So do you have to dig that out and take it in the winter?
Nope, it overwinters right there.
I see a plant over there that has a most unusual top. What is that?
That is a Globe Master allium. And those are the spent blossoms. They are a spring bloomer, and they have just dried down to that point. And those are the big ones. And then I've got a smaller one just in front of us that is Millennium, and they are just blooming now. And Mary, this is another sunbed I have that is pollinator friendly. I have lots of plants that the bees, the butterflies, and the hummingbirds all like. And the Monarda is a very big popular one. I have butterfly weed, I have lavender. We talk about microclimates, and lavender is a good microclimate plant because lavender is not supposed to overwinter here because it's a zone 5 plant. Microclimates are where you take and produce a smaller climate within the rest of the climate. We are a zone 4 and lavender is a zone 5. But because of the protection in the winter from with the trees, it produces a warmer spot. So this will overwinter here. And there's many other plants that you can do if you've got protection, whether that means the mulch also helps the roots. The trees cut the wind. They will overwinter and you just have to try them.
So you can sometimes experiment in addition to what's on the labels.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
And there's many things that you can. I have got a Japanese maple that is growing here. That is a zone 5. It is living here and it's doing quite well. I've also got a redbud that does quite well here as well. And they are zone 5 plants.
Well, there's been some people that I won't mention the names who've tried lavender and haven't had good luck at all. So you definitely have the
Yes.
microclimate.
Yep.
So what are some of the other plants that you have for the hummingbirds too?
The hummingbirds like anything with a tube. The Monarda is a great one. They also like the hosta flowers because the flowers on the hostas are a tube. So I always suggest people not cut the flowers off until after they're done blooming because the hummingbirds absolutely love those flowers. Snapdragons as an annual is another one that's very good because they like that type of a flower. Now they will also go to the daisies. They will also go to the black-eyed Susan, Rebecca's. The daylilies, you'll find them there. Anything that has kind of a throat, they will go to.
So do you have very many annuals in the ground too?
No, I do not. I don't find, for me, because I don't do a lot of watering, I do better with them in pots because it makes me go out and water them. But in the ground, no, I do not because I've got so many perennials. I just don't put many annuals in the ground because there's really not a whole lot of room. I do a lot in planters like the ones behind us, and they do quite well in planters, and I can make sure they get the right fertilizer and everything. And so I do my annuals in pots.
I can see the hanging baskets from here and they're absolutely gorgeous. What do you all have in those pots?
They are red and white geraniums with, it's called Silver Falls. It's a draper, and that's all that's in them. And then all you have to do is snap off the old blossoms when they're done, and they come again. They are an easy annual to have.
So do you cut off the blooms or do you break off the blooms?
I break off the blooms. They snap off quite easily and they do quite well. I find that if you leave a little bit of the stem from the flower, they don't seem to send out another flower very fast. They will eventually, but not as fast as if you snap it off.
What do you use to keep your baskets looking so beautiful?
I use a water-soluble fertilizer that I mix in with the water when I water them. I happen to use Miracle-Gro, and it has done very well for me. I have lots of blooms all summer long with the annuals.
How often do you fertilize?
I fertilize my baskets and my flowers probably once every 4 weeks, and that seems to be more than enough to keep them in full bloom.
Okay. So do you do any fertilizing with your perennials at all?
No, I do not actually. I use a Preem in the spring for the weeds on top of the mulch and stuff to help that, but otherwise no, I do not fertilize it and I do not water them. They kind of are on their own unless we have an extremely dry summer. Then I might pull the hoses out and start watering.
Now I know this is going to be a hard question, but what are some of your favorite plants?
Some of my favorite plants, one has to be the weeping mulberry that's up by one of the ponds. In the spring it gets completely cut back, and I mean completely, and by the end of the summer the branches are laying on the ground and it's blowing in the wind and it looks like a shaggy man with hair. Another one is a cinnamon curl birch that was an introduction from NDSU. And I have one of those, and that one is a real nice, it isn't a tall tree, it's actually quite short, but the deer love that one, so that does need to be caged up as soon as mid-September starts. One of my other ones is probably the piccolo balsam fir. That one is a nice little plant, and that one there too is an actual zone 5 plant that I have been able to grow here too. So those are probably some of my favorites right there.
Nancy, how did you get your hands on a cinnamon curls birch?
Actually, I found one up in Fargo at Cheyenne Nurseries or Gardens that Neil had established, and I found it up there. I bought it from him.
Well, do you have any plans for the future at all with all your beds?
Oh, there's always room for more beds. Probably just kind of maintaining where I'm at. I'm not getting any younger. I am able to maintain, for the most part, the beds I have, and I think that's more than plenty to keep clean and good. So,
Well, I saw a greenhouse when we drove in. When did that come here?
that came in this spring. We found one and we decided to go ahead and purchase it, and I have some work to do with it before I can actually start annuals and perennials in the spring in it, but I look forward to working in it. Right now, I've got a lot of my cactus and succulents that I had in the house. I have them in there, and the warmth is actually pushing them into bloom, which is kind of nice because some of them have never bloomed since I've had them. So that's kind of fun to have.